and then you type in NKA Idaho in the search box in YouTube, and that will pull up all the classes from last semester and all the ones from this semester so far that have been recorded. So if you missed a class because of a conflict in the past, you can go back and watch. So that's a neat feature. As things open up, we're hoping to offer a hybrid model where we continue to have virtual classes and then also some in-person classes. As I mentioned earlier, NKA is run by volunteers. So if you would like to volunteer to teach a class, or if you know someone else who might teach a class, or if you'd like to volunteer to be on one of the NKA committees that help our program to run more smoothly, Kathy McDougall is your contact person. So I will type Kathy's email address into the chat box so that you may contact her. We always welcome new people, new ideas, and new perspectives to NKA. It only makes us stronger. So do think about volunteering, please. A couple of quick housekeeping items also. Your microphones are being muted as you enter the session. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask Bridget during class, you'll use the chat box to type in a question. And to do that, you're going to take your cursor to the bottom of the screen and you'll see a little word bubble that says chat. When you click on it, it opens the chat box, the chat window, and you'll type your question. Then at the end of the class, we'll have time for Bridget to answer questions that have been posed. Also, you can leave the session at any time by, again, taking your cursor to the bottom of the screen. You'll see a button that says leave, and if you click on that, that'll allow you to leave the session. And I'll also ask you, if you're planning to move around during class, if you'll turn your video off for us, because that is a little distracting, we would really appreciate it. All right, let's get started. Our instructor today is Bridget. I'm going to let her introduce herself and introduce us to the great world, the wonderful world of hot air frying. Bridget?
Thanks, Carol. I appreciate that introduction. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We're not in the morning anymore. I'm glad to see you guys. I'm really excited. It looks like we have about a little over 30 participants. That's exciting. I haven't taught this class to that many people. I've done it twice before, and both times I did it online, just as I'm doing it now. So I've kind of refined it a couple times, gotten a couple more online videos for you guys to see. I wish we were in person so that you could actually taste the recipes, but hopefully in a couple of months or not too long, we'll be back with face-to-face here eventually. But I am super happy to be able to do online distance learning with everyone and be able to bring you guys some information, some tools. I do miss the hands-on, but I'm just so thankful that I can still teach. So I am the Family Consumer Science Educator for Ada County with the University of Idaho. We used to be called home economists. I don't know if any of you remember your home ec teacher. I had one at West Junior High here in Boise. I can't remember her name though. I keep trying to remember it, but so I am the Family Consumer Science Educator for Ada County, and I teach classes in food safety, health, and nutrition. So a lot of these classes that I do, one-time classes that focus on either an appliance and talk about how we can cook healthier with it. I also focus on the food safety aspects of the appliance. And then I also talk a little bit usually about nutrition. But some of the other things I do is I lead our Master Food Safety class, used to be called Master Food Preserver class here in Ada County. And we have volunteers throughout the valley who teach how to safely can and preserve food, freeze, dry, can food. I also lead the diabetes prevention program. And I know tomorrow we're going to be talking about diabetes prevention, how you can prevent diabetes. And I know I see a couple of familiar faces. I know I saw Sandy, and of course she was gardening because she's in our Master Gardener class. Hi, Sandy. And I see Gypsy Hall, and I know a couple of you have been in classes with us before, so welcome back. So with me today, before I get started in the class, I also have Nikki Telford. If you can wave, Nikki, say hello. Nikki is my Family Consumer Science program coordinator, so she also is going to be helping. She and I tested a bunch of recipes, so I'm going to have Nikki talk about a couple of the recipes that she did at the end of the presentation. Carol shared. If you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. Nikki might answer those in the chat if they're easy to answer, or at the end, Carol can let me know what the questions are that maybe I need to address or answer at the end of the presentation. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. But if you guys want to type into the chat if you have an air fryer and if you've used it or if it's still in the box or sitting on the counter and you haven't used it yet. Okay. Looks like I'm looking, I finally got the, oops, the chat to come up. Let's see here. So let's see. I've used it, Food Ninja, use mine, thinking about getting one, tried it once, considering purchasing, don't have one, wondering if I need it, don't have one, we have a Power XL, have one, use it all the time. Okay, so we have a lot of different, oops, varieties. Sorry about that. I went ahead and went for it on my, I'm going to stop this really quick. Sorry about that. For some reason, my view would not bring up the presentation and my view. So now here I am back. So it looks like we have a variety of uses. Can you guys see the screen okay?
We can see you, Bridget, but not the PowerPoint.
Okay, let me try this again. Okay, technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, can we see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So today I have a presentation called Full of Hot Air, Air Frying Basics. So we're just going to talk about some of the basics of air frying, and the name Full of Hot Air. I was trying to be creative because my colleague developed a presentation on electronic pressure cookers called Cooking Under Pressure. So I thought I would try to come up with a catchy name. So Full of Hot Air. And so in today's class, we're going to talk a little bit about how air fryers work, the different types of air fryers, how you can use and care for your air fryer, what you can make in it, the different things you can make. We're going to watch a couple videos, and then we're going to end with some tips and care use follow-up, and then allow time for some question and sharing if you guys want to share some of your favorite recipes. I do want to let you know that I will be sending the PowerPoint as well as links to the videos that I share in the class that will be emailed out to you by New Knowledge Adventures by Sheena. One of the volunteers will be emailing it out to you. So don't worry about taking notes unless you want to, but you will be getting the PowerPoint. So to begin with, how air fryers work? So it's kind of a misnomer. They're not really frying. They're really full of hot air, and they're basically small, powerful ovens. And ovens use air as a vehicle for heat, whereas deep frying uses fat as the vehicle for heat. So these do not really fry. It's like an amazing convection oven, but they're not exactly like a convection oven because the airflow is designed to kind of closely replicate the heat distribution of deep frying in hot fat. So that's where it gets it nice and crispy. So they're small yet mighty little convection ovens. They can roast, broil, or bake in it, but you can't actually deep fry in it. And so because they are ovens and not fryers, the food that comes out of the air fryer will not be 100% identical to frying. Like you get it, it won't be exactly like those fried onion rings or crispy hot wings that you get at the grill or the diner, but it'll be similar, but it's not exactly the same because they're not actually fryers. So let's talk about that. But the positive thing is that they're a lot less messy and oil intensive. They're healthier than frying. So like Shaq says here, if you have a snack attack, Shaq, they're healthier than getting the fried food at the restaurant or the drive-through. They nicely brown veggies and make crackly skinned chicken wings that are similar. Like I said, they're not going to be exactly like your drive-through restaurant or your grilled chicken wings that you get at the bar and grill, because they are using deep fryers, but they're going to be similar. And they can also bake light and airy cakes even. So they can do much more than just crank out the fried food or the mock fried food. They can do lots of different things. And we're going to watch a video that shows what that is. So there's a lot of different types. So why don't you put in the chat if any of these look familiar to you? So the main type, which you see here, the third one from the left, from my left, I'm not sure if it's your left, that says Krups on it. This is kind of what the basic air fryer looks like. Kind of looks like a fancy coffee maker with a basket. It's a basket type fryer. How many people have one like that? Okay. Then we also have over on the left here, the tower type. This is very similar to what I have and use. And I know someone put in the chat that they have the Power XL. It's similar to that. So this is a tower. These actually can have a roaster area in them. There's also places here where you can put in different racks. Then the second one in this Oster, this is more of a multi-tool. It kind of looks like a toaster oven. And there's multiple things you can do in this one. And oftentimes these multi-function also can be air fryers. They can be toaster ovens. They can do multiple different things. And then one of the ones I haven't tried yet, but if you look clear to the right here, Instapot, which is a brand that makes electronic pressure cookers, they actually came out with a lid, if you see it on top here, that you can actually put on top of your Instapot to turn it into an air fryer. I've not tried this yet. Is anyone in class today, have any of you tried this or seen this? Nikki, is there anything in the chat?
Not right now. Looks like most people just have the basket type mostly.
Basket type. Okay. So this is what most people have. We are looking at, and I do have lots of the electronic pressure cookers, and I have an Instapot one. So I'm looking to maybe try one of these adaptations and see how that turns out. But the multi-function one, I do know someone that has this and they really like this multi-function one. They do a lot of air frying and it's a very large capacity and they use this one. I know someone had asked me prior to this class about cost. Usually the basket type, like this Krups here, you can get those anywhere on sale from $25 up to $50. The rotisserie, the tower type over here, again, it just depends. You can watch the sales. They can be anywhere from $30 up to $75. The multifunction, like the Oster here, these devices tend to be a lot more expensive because they do more than just air frying. They're multi-tools. So they do multiple things. And then the Instapot attachment, last time I looked for it, I think it was about $35 to get the attachment lid, but that turns it into an air fryer. But you do need to make sure it's going to work with your type of Instapot, your model. I have not found one that works with one of the models that I have, but I bought it fairly in the beginning of the trend of the Instapot and the electronic pressure cooker. So I haven't found a lid that works yet. So now that we've talked about the different types of air fryers, how do you use them? So this is very somewhat complicated, not complicated, but every air fryer, just like with the electronic pressure cookers, has different buttons and different functions. But one of the things I always recommend with any new device, whether it be an air fryer or electronic pressure cooker or even a blender, is to look for the user manual. You always have to read through your user manual. Every device is a little bit different than others. Some of them are very similar, and we're going to watch two videos that kind of give you some tips on how to use the air fryers. But again, I cannot emphasize enough to really look at your user manual. And the other thing I will recommend is if you don't have time to, I've been guilty of this. There's been times I haven't been able to read through that whole user manual, but I need to use the device right away. So I always look for these quick start guides. They're a really good way to get started. If you don't have time to read the whole manual, at least follow the user guide, the quick start guides. And if you see on this one up in the right, it says see owner's manual for complete assembly and operating. So it's really important too to look at that user manual. But if you have to get started right away, you can also use a quick start guide. This is one that actually came with the one I have, the Power Air Fryer Pro Elite, and it was pretty quick and handy to use it. I did still look at the owner's manual for the safety guide, but this is one way to get started. But each one is different. I've looked at 3 different types of air fryers, and they're similar, but they do have different functions. The buttons look a little different, so I did have to look at the user guide to be able to do that. So I'm going to try to bring this video up and see we can learn a little bit more about how to use the air fryer. See, I can bring it up. Okay, are you guys able to see this?
Yes.
Okay.
How to use an air fryer. Air fryers are supposed to be a healthy alternative to traditional frying methods because they circulate super hot air that creates a crispy texture without the need for oil. But how do you actually use one? For starters, we suggest using about a tablespoon of oil when cooking in an air fryer, even though you don't technically need it. This helps ensure maximum crispiness and that your food won't stick to the air fryer's basket or rack. This is the Philips digital air fryer. It's really easy to use and is equipped to heat up frozen foods or cook raw meat if you're in the mood for some chicken wings or breaded fish. To begin, hit the power button, then select your desired preset or manually set temperature and let it preheat. Either lightly oil your food or the air fryer's basket before placing the food into the unit. Also make sure to marinate and season your ingredients before cooking. Once the air fryer is preheated, load up the basket and set a timer. In most cases, you'll want to cook in intervals, stirring or flipping the food every few minutes to prevent burning or uneven cooking. After your food has reached the desired level of crispiness, pull out the frying basket and enjoy. It's really as simple as that.
Okay, so that was a pretty good video. Some things she did right was talking a little bit about preheating, super important with air frying. Preheating the air fryer. If you don't preheat it, it takes a little bit longer to cook. She talked about oil, and it does require a little bit of oil. I will tell you that there's different recommendations on that. I'm going to show you another video from Cooking Light, and they say one of the mistakes people make is to use too much oil, and I would agree with that. One of the health benefits of using an air fryer is to cut down on the fat. So you don't really need to use as much. So you really can kind of, I would recommend in recipes that you kind of play around with that. Try to use a little less oil and see how it turns out. The other thing she talked about is rotating the food in layers, and especially if you're using a basket type air fryer, if you have food layered, you really do need to rotate that food because things in the middle will not get as much air as the food on the outside. So you do need to kind of take the basket out, shake it, or use tongs to flip the food around. So let's watch another video. And this one is from Cooking Light, and it gives a little more detail and some of the things to avoid when using the air fryer. Let's see here. Okay, so let's see if I can bring this one up. Okay, so in that video, they show a little bit more, some of the tips to avoid. Can you guys tell me what those are that you just saw? You can go ahead and unmute if you want.
Using too much oil.
Using too much oil. So like I said in that first video, you saw her kind of pouring in that oil. I would really measure and try to use a little less. And definitely, you know, one of the ways to use less oil is to use a little squirt bottle that you know only does 1 or 2 teaspoons. If you do put 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons, if it's a breaded item, you know, put it in a bowl and kind of toss it in that bowl before you add it to the air fryer. Thanks, Sandy. What else? What are some of the other tips, mistakes people make commonly with air fryers?
Cooking food beforehand, like, you know, instead of using raw vegetables.
Yeah, so that basically what that said is a lot of people think air fryers are just for those ready to eat foods, things, you know, frozen food like your frozen fries or your tater tots or your breaded items that you buy at the store. Well, really, the best thing about an air fryer, in my opinion, and I think other people's, is that you can make from fresh, like you're saying, Gypsy. You know, you can cut up your own vegetables, you can get your own meat, and then you can have healthier options, right? Those pre-packaged, ready-to-eat foods sometimes have stuff added to them that aren't the healthiest. So it's really important to, you know, start from fresh. You know, one of my favorite recipes I'll talk about later is a fresh vegetable and meat recipe. And that was one of the other mistakes. What did they say that people don't use their air fryer for that they should? It was cooking vegetables. A lot of people just use their air fryers for your traditional fried foods like potatoes. And although potato is a vegetable, it's great for other things. There's a recipe that we'll show you that has Brussels sprouts. You can cook a lot of vegetables in your air fryer and it does a really nice job. And what's the other mistake they say that people don't use their air fryer for that they recommend you use it for? They showed donuts, right?
Donuts, yeah.
And not that I'm recommending donuts. However, if you're a donut lover, maybe using the air fryer to try to bake donuts versus using a fryer, you might have a little healthier option of a baked item if you use an air fryer. And there are special pans you can buy that go into your air fryer. So it's still going to give you that crispy fry-like texture of that baked product that you normally would fry in a fryer. They're recommending you try it in the air fryer. And we're going to give you guys a couple of resources, links I will send to you in the email with recipes to try that. The other thing they said that was a mistake a lot of people do is especially if you have the basket type fryers, they will layer the food. Like they'll have 3 and 4 inches deep of food. Well, it's not so great to do that. In a basket, I recommend that you do smaller batches, and or if you do layer it, that you take it out and you toss it so that it gets evenly cooked in the air fryer. Otherwise, if you layer it, the food in the middle may not get cooked, may not get air fried correctly, and you'll come out with a product that might not be safe and also might not be to your desired crispiness because it didn't get the air around it. So be sure not to fill your basket too deep. Okay, what other mistakes? Did anyone see anything else that we missed?
Washing.
And that's a really important. Any appliance you have, you need to read the user guide, and recommends washing, especially if you're using a lot of oil and grease. But any appliance you have, I know individuals that have had electronic pressure cookers that they didn't accurately clean, and then they put that pressure cooker away, put the lid on. When they brought back out that electronic pressure cooker, they had a nice surprise. And any guess on what that surprise was? Mold. Yeah. So super important to clean your air fryer. Follow the directions. Most of the time, those baskets, you take them out and you wash them in warm soapy water, let them dry on your dish drainer. I'm not sure, some of them you may be able to put in your dishwasher, but I'd be sure to read it, especially if they're plastic. I know the Power Elite that I have has trays, and so I always wash those trays out really good. The appliance itself, you have to wait for it to cool down usually, and then you can use a warm soapy dishcloth or scrubby to wash the inside of it and dry it all out. So I really recommend between each use that you clean it according to the manufacturer's user guide or manual. follow that. Be sure to clean it out. It's going to extend the life of your plants. It's going to make sure you don't get any bacteria, mold, things like that growing in there. And it's also going to help with the quality of your food. You know, sometimes between uses, if you cook some buffalo cauliflower bites and then you go to cook some donuts, you don't really want them tasting spicy, do you? Or maybe you do. Maybe you want some buffalo cinnamon donuts, but really important for flavor transfer, for life of your appliance, and for food safety. All those reasons you need to wash your appliances and the trays and baskets between use. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So that's a little bit about how. Yes.
We currently do not see your slides. We just see you.
Yes, that's okay. I'm going to bring them up now. We're going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how to use your plants. So let's talk about what you can make in your air fryer. So there's a lot of different things you can make, and I'm going to show this video so that you can see what it is you can make. Okay.
Oh, that's a low price. Oh, that's a low price.
Oh, that is a low price.
What's a low price?
Oh, that's a low price. Can you let me shop?
Yeah, I think I have something else playing in the background. Let's see. I
That's a
can
low.
close out. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Let's try this again. See him layering it in the basket there. Okay, so if you can see from there, you can bake, you can fry, you can do all sorts of things in your air fryer. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that Nikki and I have tried. Okay. So sweet potato fries. So we did these. Nikki, do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, sweet potato fries. I was really excited to try these. My husband absolutely loves sweet potatoes, so I really wanted to feed him a healthier snack. And these were a little tricky. I learned that the best way to make sweet potato fries is to cut them all the same length and thickness. If there are different types of thickness, some of them cooked a little bit faster than the others. But overall, they turned out fantastic, very crispy, and my husband pretty much ate the whole thing. So they're a great little snack.
Okay, so sweet potato fries are all fries in the fryer. So like she said, cutting uniform size, super important with almost everything. And we also teach this in our food preservation with canning. Anytime you have uniform size, the heat penetration, the air circulation, everything's going to be more uniform. If you have something that's a thicker diameter and then something that's thinner, the thinner thing is going to cook faster. So it's really important to try to have consistency in the length, the shape, the depth of the food, because then it'll be more even cooking. Thanks for sharing, Nikki. They were delicious, I have to say. So we also did veggie chips. Do you want to talk about the veggie chips, Nikki? Because you did those as well. And we actually did share these as a sample in the class, and they were pretty phenomenal. I was really impressed.
We ended up doing potatoes, sweet potatoes, and yams. So each of those have a slightly different flavor and texture to them. But again, like we were just talking about, the uniform size really played a role in how they were cooked and how well they were done. And the tricky thing is too, it was mentioned earlier that you might need to rotate and kind of move the potatoes around so it cooks evenly. But if you overcook them, they can get burnt really quickly. So you need to watch it. And I think I just added a teaspoon of oil to it, tossed it around in a bowl, added some seasoning to it, and then just put it in the tray factor, and it cooked really, really well. But you do need to watch them. They do tend to go a little bit faster than what the recipe says.
And I also made the veggie chips. I did beets, and I have to admit, I've been looking for a way to eat beets. I'm not a fan of beets, but I finally found a way that I can eat them as a veggie chip. They turned out really nice and crispy, a little bit, like she said, I only used a teaspoon of oil to about, I think I had sliced up about 3 or 4 beets, made a couple cups of chips, and I just put in a teaspoon of oil and some salt and pepper and tossed them and then laid them out on the trays and the Power Elite. And I want to say, Nikki, did you slice yours to a 1/8 inch?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I did as well. So that 1/8 inch was almost perfect, but you do have to watch it. Some of them did get kind of crispy and 1 or 2 actually burned on me. So you have to kind of watch your air fryers as you're using them. And we're going to share more tips here at the end. Okay, fruit chips. We also made fruit chips. Nikki, you want to talk about the apple slice or apple chips that you made?
Yeah, so the apple chips, as you can see in the picture, are the round ones, but I actually cut them in half and removed the seeds because I didn't want to fry those up and eat them. But we did a treatment of just a little bit of lemon juice, and you could leave them either plain, or you can add a little bit of cinnamon and sugar if you prefer a little bit sweeter of a snack. But again, uniform size turned out really well, really sweet, and they end up being one of my favorite snacks from the whole testing of the recipes.
They were very popular. Everyone that got to try them out here in the office really enjoyed them. I really liked them. And I'm going to try, I haven't tried it yet. We did more of the Honey Crisp or the Red Delicious, which are a sweeter apple. I want to try the Granny Smith, the green apples, and see if I can get a tartar apple chip and see how that tastes. I did want to state with the fruit chips and with the veggie chips, really what the air fryer is doing is it's almost dehydrating the food. And so something I've done in my master food safety classes is I've used the food dehydrators. Well, I'm almost leaning towards the air fryer as a dehydration method because I think it did such a nice job with the apple chips and also with the veggie chips. We haven't done it yet, but I want to try doing apples and strawberries and some of the other fruit pictured here. So your air fryer can also be a dehydrator, but just remember the goal of dehydration is to remove a certain amount of water. And so with fruit, you want it to get it dry enough that you can bend it, but that it doesn't snap. And with vegetables, you want it to kind of crack and snap, and that means it's dry enough to store it as a dehydrated. And Nikki mentioned that she did do a pre-treatment. So that pre-treatment of lemon juice is to prevent it from browning, although you see here that they're brown because they have cinnamon on them. But for most of your fruits, if you want them to stay lighter in color, pre-treating them will preserve the color a little bit and prevent them from darkening before you dehydrate them. Okay, cauliflower bites. And I actually did this recipe. There were two different recipes. One recipe actually had breading, and I found that very challenging. It was a little hard to get the breading to stick. And then as I put it into my air fryer, it made quite a mess. So if you are doing a home breaded type of product in your air fryer, I do recommend putting something down underneath it, or really getting it dry before you put it into your air fryer. But the cauliflower bites, there was also another one where you just season the cauliflower with a little bit of oil, like a teaspoon of oil, and then you put the buffalo seasoning. It was actually buffalo ranch seasoning powder. You put it right in and toss the cauliflower in it. And then I laid it out, and that one turned out really nice. So a really good alternative if you want something a little healthier than those fried buffalo chicken rings, you can do it this way. But you also have some recipes with chicken wings where you can do the same thing, where you put a buffalo seasoning on it and then you air fry it. So it gives you those buffalo hot wings that you like. And then one of my favorite recipes that I tried and I was really surprised with is I did meat and vegetables. So in this one, I just chopped up a chicken breast into just small 1/4 inch dices, and I mixed it with a stir fry of some broccoli and some onion, and then I put a little bit of soy sauce, just a little bit of marinade in there. The chicken was marinated, and I took that mixture, that stir fry mixture, and I laid it out onto the trays, and it cooked very nicely in the air fryer. I was really impressed at how well it did. Came out with a really nice product, very similar than a stir fry and a wok, with just a little bit of oil, not much, like 2 teaspoons for that 1 pound of chicken. But we have these recipes. We're going to send the links to you. Sheena will send them after the class with the PowerPoint. But this was one of my favorite recipes. Okay, so in ending the presentation, just some food safety tips and some things to think about. I know that the person said, you know your product will be done when it's nice and crispy, but really the only way to ensure the safety of meat, poultry, and egg products when you're air frying is to use your food safety thermometer. So make sure, even though you know it looks good, we don't know until we put that thermometer in and check it to make sure it's at a safe temperature. Also, when you're purchasing this new appliance, when you're purchasing an air fryer, you need to think about size. So how many people will you be cooking for at mealtime? Those little basket air fryers are great for 1 to 2 people. But if you're going to be serving 4 or 5 people, or even up to 10 people, this is when I know an individual who bought a very large multi-tool air fryer because she wanted to be able to air fry, 20 chicken wings at a time. And not that you couldn't do it in the basket, but you'd have to do multiple cookings to get that many chicken wings cooked. So really think about the size of the appliance. Again, caution you not to overfill the basket, as food will not cook evenly or reach the proper temperature. And over frying it will also interfere with that browning and crisping process. You can also turn the basket or food during the process to get it to evenly air fry. So that's one thing to do if you have the basket type, or even if you have trays, you can still rotate those trays out. That's something we do in dehydration as well with trays. And sometimes you have to rotate those trays to make sure it's evenly cooking. Be sure not to over oil, as most basket tray air fryers have a non-stick coating. So there's not a need, we saw in that one video where she was spraying inside the basket. You can do that, but I would recommend to spray lightly, especially if there's already a non-stick surface. Like with mine on the trays, the one tray has a non-stick surface on it. So I really don't need to grease it much. Also, really important, allow plenty of space around your air fryer and above it to avoid overheating. Any appliance, we often recommend a certain amount of space above and behind it so that the air can circulate around the appliance, because you don't want to cause damage to your appliance or have it overheat. So again, look at your user manual and see what the manufacturer recommends, but be sure to have space around the air fryer to allow the device to have air circulation. And also, last but not least, be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for operating and cleaning it. Super important to keep your air fryer clean and dry between use to prevent mold and other bacteria or things, and also the off flavoring, and also just regular cleaning maintains the life of your plants longer. It won't deteriorate and cause things to break down in the device. If you keep it clean, that helps prevent that. Okay, so that is it. Any questions for today about air frying? Any comments, any recipes that anyone wants to share?
Bridget, I'll go to the chat box.
Okay.
And there are several questions there. Let me scroll up to make sure I'm not missing any. Okay, here we go. Janet asks, will it be necessary to buy additional baking aids like trays and small cake pans?
Yes. So it depends. I mean, unless your air fryer comes with that, then yes, you would have to. And it may be, you know, you can look to see, I know there's a lot of, like I've bought some tools for the electronic pressure cooker or Instapot. And some of those little mini cake pans and things I'm able to also use in the air fryer, but you want to double check to make sure that they can get heated up to a certain temperature and that they'll be okay in the air fryer. But yes, most air fryers don't come with those baking dishes. You'll have to buy them additionally or see if what you have is safe to use in the air fryer.
All right. A question from Gypsy, and I'm getting hungry after reading this question.
I wish you were here in person.
Yeah. All right.
We would do the demo and testing right now.
Yeah. Gypsy wants to know about how about veggie empanadas? Would these work in an air fryer?
I would imagine they would, as it does, you know, air frying, both the frozen, you know, if you bought frozen empanadas or if you made your own, which I would recommend, it would just be one of those things you would kind of have to test. I am going to give you some links to some recipes. And I know on one of those links, there's about 45 different recipes and there is an empanada on there, but I believe it's not the healthy kind. I shouldn't say that. It's a fruit-filled empanada, not a veggie, but I imagine you might be able to try that recipe and instead of using the fruit filling, maybe do vegetable filling and test it out. Again, It's going to be the depth of your empanada that I would think about. I wouldn't make them too thick.
All right. All right. And these two questions are from me, and then there's a couple more following. Have you done much baking with your air fryer?
I have not yet. It's on the list to try it. I do know one individual that has done some cakes in her air fryer, and they've come out kind of airy and nice. So it's on my list. I really want to try it, and I shouldn't do it, but I really want to try the donuts. So I'm going to do that.
Oh, well, in that video, you had me at banana bread.
Yeah.
And on that same video, there was, they didn't talk about it, but there was a little graphic in the lower corner, something about ice cream.
You know, I think that might have been an ad that popped up, Carol. I can't imagine.
I was wondering.
I don't think you can do ice cream in an air fryer. Not that
okay, thank you. All right, another question. Kathy, can you use foil and or parchment paper while cooking in the air fryer?
So foil, I know you can use. I have used it. I have not used parchment. So I would read your user guide that comes with your air fryer and see if it would be okay. But I would imagine both foil and parchment paper are stable for baking at very high temperatures. So I'm sure they would be fine in your air fryer, but do read your user guide in case it says, it will probably tell you in there if you can use them or not. But I would imagine definitely foil, and I would imagine parchment paper as well if you're doing baking, but be sure to look at your guide.
All right. Are there any more questions? Okay. Well, I told everybody that I would type Kathy McDougall's email address in the chat box if you are interested in volunteering for NKA, and I haven't done that yet, but I will in a moment. Oh, Kathy just typed it. All right, Kathy, I'll let everybody read that. Thank you. I'm not good at multitasking, obviously, but Bridget, you are a master at multitasking online.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm trying. Sometimes there was a couple of backgrounds that weren't supposed to pop up in those videos. I had another video running, but this is the joy of technology. But I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm learning.
All right.
I did want to share, Carol, when I send out, when Sheena sends out the email with the PowerPoint and the links for you guys, there's also some links for some recipes that you can also access. I'm also going to send out evaluation for myself. So I appreciate it's an anonymous evaluation. So you can put whatever you want. I appreciate any tips, any information on how to present better. That's my job. And so I'll send that out. If you guys are willing to do that, I'd appreciate it. And I will, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'm not going to do it for the survey, but I can send a raffle prize for attendees today. So I will have Sheena pick a random participant number and we'll go off the participant list and send a raffle prize out to help you guys with your air frying.
All right. Well, Bridget, thank you so much for this excellent presentation. You did a very good job of audience participation, which can be a challenge virtually. As I mentioned earlier to you, I have an air fryer on my Christmas list, but my birthday's in a couple of weeks, so I may have to bump that up to the birthday list instead.
I recommend it. Like I said, I had one that was sitting there for 2 or 3 months. And then I finally got it out to start practicing for this class last late summer, early fall. And I wish I'd gotten it out earlier because I really do enjoy using it and it's fast and does a good job. So, and I think doesn't heat up your house as much as your oven. Another question I had received, and I've done a little research on it, is energy efficiency. And is it more energy efficient? And you know, what I've come down to is that it cooks a lot faster. So instead of leaving your oven on for an hour, to do an air fryer for 20, 30 minutes, I believe it is more energy efficient. So,
all right.
But I keep doing research. So I'll let you know if I find out more.
Okay, and there is one more question. Gypsy is asking if there's a recording of the cooking under pressure class, and I don't believe there is for NKA, but is it available someplace else?
You know,
Bridget?
I will look into it and see if there is. But I'll also put out there, if you guys want me to do the cooking under pressure digitally, I will try to get that done. And if you guys want to have me do it, I would do it for you. So.
All right. And I believe, let me scroll the chat box. Okay, that is the end of the questions, but there are kudos. There are nice compliments in the chat box for you and your presentation.
Thank you, Carol.
All right. Well, Kathy, I believe that's the end of our class for today. So